Welcome to the Moment After podcast here in CATC students. This is the moment where we follow up from what happened last night in our midweek service. And last night I brought the word as I talked through Isaiah chapter 6. And as I was in there, as I was doing the message, as I was proclaiming the word last night, it was this idea was that we've been talking through the search, right? The whole search moment is centered around this idea that we are saying, God, search me, right? God, search me. God, look into my life and see if there's anything in me at all that needs to be transformed or changed. And so here we are in this moment after, these moments after our podcast here, and we're saying this, is that, hey, I want to give you a quick insight, just 2 or 3 minutes every week to kind of give you a recap of last night's word, last night's message. So we talked about this, the stages we must go through once we meet God. That was what we talked about last night, the stages we must go through once we meet God. Number 1 was this. We are convicted and realize our sin. Right? When we stand before God, we must realize that when we experience Him, when we meet Him, that we must be convicted and have the realization of our sin. Right? So we must realize that, hey, I'm a sinner, right? You cannot stand before a holy God without realizing, hey, I am a sinner. There is something different about me. There's something that holds me back from going all in. And so it is that moment when we are convicted and we have the realization of our sin. So we talked about how the big moment, right? When Isaiah chapter 6 starts off and says, the year that King Uzziah died, right? That's a monumental moment. Why? Because it would be like us saying, hey, in the year that America shut down because of COVID, because of that, it was the year that God spoke in my life. That fall, God changed my life. So that's what we're talking about, right? So there's that big moment. So when you go through big moments, you remember, hey, in that moment, God changed and God transformed me. So number 1 was conviction and realization. Number 2 is this, is that God changes me, right? We are changed when God cleanses us. In Isaiah chapter 6, it's a seraphim leaves grabs this hot coal and touches the lips of Isaiah, right? And Isaiah says, "Woe is me, I'm unclean." Well, that's the moment where God cleanses him, right? Where there's an atonement for his sin. The atonement and cleansing can only happen through and by God. That's what we talked about last night. So God is the one who changes us because He's cleansing us, right? And that for us, that is through Jesus Christ. He has cleansed us. He has changed us. And so that we're able to live fully for God. And we cannot experience God until we have been changed by Him. And then in that moment last night, I talked about the 18-wheeler illustration. And if you know me well at all, you know the 18-wheeler illustration, but here it is. You cannot be hit by an 18-wheeler without you experiencing something, right? So if an 18-wheeler ran over me, I wouldn't look the way I look right now, right? I would look completely different. And the whole point of that is this. Is God not bigger than an 18-wheeler? So if we experience God, we are changed. We don't look the same way that we do, right? And so it's the same idea, the same concept. We don't look the same. And then number 3 is this, that we are sent or commissioned to fulfill God's mission. We are sent or commissioned to fulfill God's mission. So God takes us through all these stages so that we can then be sent to live where God commissions us to go. So inwardly are points 1 and 2. Point number 3 is the outwardly. I'm responding. I'm going out and I'm living on mission. Right? So we must tell others what Jesus has done in our lives. So, hey, last night I commissioned you as students and adults if you were watching online, but I want to just challenge you to go and live completely for Jesus. So this is the Moment After with Pastor Scott. I look forward to seeing you guys next week on next week's podcast. I'll see you then. Bye.